Have you ever forgotten where you put your keys and then forgot why you walked into the room in the first place? No one really thinks that could be the start of dementia. But sometimes, the most dangerous things come from what's most familiar, like the food we eat every single day. I'm a doctor, and I've worked with older adults for over 30 years. And one thing I've learned is this: memory loss isn't just about agates, also about what we put into our bodies. One of my patients once asked me, "Why do I keep forgetting my granddaughter's name, even though I see her every day?" And honestly, the answer might be hiding in that bowl of white rice, a glass of soda, or the piece of toast you had this morning. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 11 everyday foods that could be quietly contributing to memory loss and, most importantly, what you can do to change that before it's too late. Are you ready? Because your brain is worth protecting. 1. Refined sugar. Sweet on the tongue, cruel to the memory. Think back to the last time you had something sweet: a donut, a soda, maybe just a spoonful of sugar in your morning coffee. It felt good, didn't it? That quick hit of pleasure, that little lift of energy. But here's the truth: that feeling is just an illusion. And what's happening behind the scenes? It's not sweet at all. I had a patient named David Kindman, 72 years old, a retired math teacher. He told me his memory had started fading about 5 years ago. First, it was little things missing: dentist appointments, mixing up student names. But slowly, it got worse. One day, he couldn't even remember the way back to the house he'd lived in for over 30 years with his wife. When I asked about his diet, he said, "It's pretty simple. No alcohol, no smoking, but I do have a sweet tooth. Breakfast isn't breakfast without cookies, a little chocolate in the afternoon. And I can't sleep unless I have milk with sugar at night." We ran some tests. Nothing drastic except one thing: he was insulin resistant. Not just in his body, but in his brain. Yes, your brain can also become insulin resistant. And when that happens, brain cells can't absorb glucose, their main source of fuel. The brain starts starving, and memory fades away like leaves falling in autumn. That's why some researchers now call this type 3 diabetes, the deep connection between high blood sugar, insulin resistance, and Alzheimer's disease. Worse yet, it's not just candy or soda. Sugar is hidden everywhere: in boxed juices, ketchup, cereal, even healthy snacks like flavored yogurt or granola bars. Sugar doesn't just make you gain weight. It also disrupts your gut microbiome, triggers chronic inflammation, and through the gut-brain connection, it raises your risk for dementia. So what's the solution? I'm not saying you have to quit everything overnight. But if you just cut down a little refined sugar each day, swap it with fresh fruit, slow down your eating, and retrain your taste buds to enjoy natural sweetness, you'll be giving your brain a chance to heal. I once asked David to try cutting sugar for just 1 month. It wasn't easy. But 3 months later, he told me, voice trembling, "I can do Sudoku again." And I remembered my wife's birthday without writing it down. See? It's never too late to start. And sometimes, a small decision like using less sugar today can be the very first step in saving the most precious parts of who we are tomorrow. 2. Refined carbs, the master of disguise in your white toast. There's something I often tell my patients: not everything that looks healthy is actually good for your brain. I remember meeting Evelyn, a 66-year-old woman, quick-witted, full of energy, proud of her healthy lifestyle. Her typical breakfast: a slice of white toast, a little fruit jam, and a glass of orange juice. Sounds reasonable, right? But when she came to see me, it wasn't her weight or blood pressure she was worried about, it was her memory. She'd forgotten her granddaughter's name, even how to use the washing machine she'd used for 15 years. And that scared her. When I looked at her diet, one thing stood out: a heavy intake of refined carbs. White bread, white rice, instant noodles, cookies, muffins, all ultra-processed, stripped of fiber and real nutrients. What happens when we eat these? Blood sugar spikes. Your body scrambles to release insulin to manage it. But if that keeps happening day after day, your body becomes insulin resistant. And just like I mentioned earlier, when the brain becomes insulin resistant, it can't get the energy it needs. It starves. And when the brain starves, memory starts to fade. The tricky part? Refined carbs sneak into almost every meal: your sandwich at lunch, pasta at dinner, even the little snacks you grab when you're bored. Ever felt sluggish or sleepy after eating? That's your brain struggling under a flood of glucose. So you grab another coffee, another sugary bite, and the cycle continues. Studies now show a diet high in refined carbs is linked to early brain shrinkage, especially in the hippocampus, the memory center of the brain that's hit first in Alzheimer's. I asked Evelyn to make a few small changes. Whole grain bread instead of white, quinoa or oats instead of white rice. Eat the whole orange, not just the juice. 8 weeks later, she came back and said, "Doctor, I still forget things sometimes, but now I remember how to make my mom's old corn soup, and that makes me feel like I'm coming back to myself." See, it doesn't take a huge change. Just knowing what's hurting your brain and starting with small shifts can make a big difference. White bread might be soft, warm, convenient, but sometimes the easiest things to swallow are the hardest for your brain to digest. If you care about your memory, make friends with real food, colorful, fibrous, and as close to nature as possible. It's a quiet but powerful way to hold on to what matters most: your clarity, your memories, your sense of self. We ran some tests. Nothing drastic except one thing. He was insulin resistant. Not just in his body, but in his brain. Yes, your brain can also become insulin resistant. And when that happens, brain cells can't absorb glucose, their main source of fuel. The brain starts starving, and memory fades away, like leaves falling in autumn. That's why some researchers now call this type 3 diabetes, the deep connection between high blood sugar, insulin resistance, and Alzheimer's disease. Worse yet, it's not just candy or soda. Sugar is hidden everywhere in boxed juices, ketchup, cereal, even healthy snacks like flavored yogurt or granola bars. Sugar doesn't just make you gain weight. It also disrupts your gut microbiome, triggers chronic inflammation, and through the gut-brain connection, it raises your risk for dementia. So what's the solution? I'm not saying you have to quit everything overnight. But if you just cut down a little refined sugar each day, swap it with fresh fruit, slow down your eating, and retrain your taste buds to enjoy natural sweetness, you'll be giving your brain a chance to heal. I once asked David to try cutting sugar for just 1 month. It wasn't easy. But 3 months later, he told me, voice trembling, "I can do Sudoku again." And I remembered my wife's birthday without writing it down. See, it's never too late to start. And sometimes, a small decision like using less sugar today can be the very first step in saving the most precious parts of who we are tomorrow. 3. High mercury fish. When a brain food becomes a silent threat. You've probably heard the saying, "Eat more fish, it's good for your brain." I've said that too. And yes, it's true, but not for every kind of fish. Let me tell you about Harold, 74, a retired chess master at a senior living community in Florida. He loved fish, especially grilled tuna. "I eat fish for my brain," he told me proudly, 4 or 5 times a week. But then strange things started happening. He got lost walking to the park, his usual route, for over 10 years. He forgot the rules of chess during a match. His wife said, "This isn't the Harold I know anymore." Tests showed elevated mercury levels in his blood, and that played a big role in his cognitive decline. Mercury is a heavy metal and a neurotoxin. It builds up silently in your body over time. It causes inflammation, damages brain tissue, and can accelerate dementia, especially in older adults. Where does it come from? Mainly from large, long-living predator fish like swordfish, big-eye tuna, shark, king mackerel. These fish absorb mercury from the ocean and smaller fish, accumulating higher levels the longer they live. When we eat too much of them, that mercury enters our body as tasteless, but toxic. The problem is, most people assume fish is always a safe, healthy choice. So they eat it often without checking which kind. I told Harold, fish is good, but only if you eat the right kinds. Smaller fish like sardines, anchovies, herring, flounder, and cod are much lower in mercury. And they still give you brain-loving omega-3, especially DHA, which supports brain structure and function. Just a few weeks after switching to smaller fish and cutting back on tuna, Harold felt lighter, clearer. He didn't return to chess championships, but he remembered his own next move. And that was a victory. I share this story because so many people are like Harold, eating well, with good intentions, but missing key information. Are you eating the right kind of fish? Do you check the label on frozen or canned seafood? Do you know which fish is your friend and which could be your hidden enemy? Remember, not all healthy food is harmless. Even something good can turn harmful if the dose is too high or the choice is wrong. For your brain, just a little too much mercury could be enough to shut down a memory you'll never get back. 4. Artificial sweeteners. When 0 calories doesn't mean safe. I still remember the first time an older patient of mine proudly said to me, "Doctor, I've quit sugar. Now I only use Splenda. No calories, no weight gain, pretty great, right?" I smiled, but deep down, I was concerned. Over the years, I've seen more and more patients turn to artificial sweeteners as a way out of sugar, only to run into a new set of problems they never saw coming. You've probably heard of names like aspartame, sucralose, acesulfame K, saccharin. They show up in all kinds of diet foods: 0-calorie sodas, sugar-free yogurt, candy, even breakfast cereal and chewable vitamins. Sounds perfect at first, sweet but no calories. A dream come true for anyone worried about weight, diabetes, or trying to eat clean. But let me ask you to picture this. You eat something sweet. Your body, from your saliva to your brain, says sugar's coming. Your pancreas gears up to release insulin. Your gut preps to absorb energy. But then, nothing happens. No sugar ever arrives. It's a trick. And if it happens too often, the body starts getting confused. The brain gets out of sync, your gut bacteria get thrown off balance, and soon you're craving sweets even more, losing control of your appetite, gaining weight, and facing higher levels of inflammation. A study from Boston University even found that people who drink diet sodas daily have a higher risk of Alzheimer's than those who don't. I had a patient named Linda, 63, very disciplined with her diet. She didn't eat real sugar at all, but every day she drank at least 2 cans of diet soda and used Splenda in her coffee and cooking. She came to me complaining of brain fog, trouble focusing, memory slips, losing her train of thought mid-sentence. We cut out the artificial sweeteners completely for 3 weeks, not replacing them with sugar, but with small amounts of honey, fresh fruit, and natural alternatives. The result? She came back smiling and said, "It's like someone opened a window in my brain. It's not foggy anymore." Now, I'm not saying all sweeteners are poison, but I do believe this. When something is made in a lab to pretend it's food, your body, especially your sensitive brain, can tell the difference. You don't need fake sugar to be healthy. You need to understand your body, listen to your brain, and choose real nourishment, not just sweet illusions. 5. Pesticide-contaminated produce. When eating more veggies isn't so simple anymore. Most of us grew up with the same advice. Eat more vegetables, they're good for you. And that's still true if the vegetables are truly safe. But after more than 30 years working with older adults, I've come to realize something. There's a modern threat we never had to worry about before: pesticides and agricultural chemicals. I remember a patient, Margaret, 70 years old. She came in with mild headaches, fatigue, and early memory problems. She told me, "Doctor, I eat healthy. I don't grow much at home, so I buy my veggies from the supermarket. Strawberries, tomatoes, spinach. I eat them every day." We ran some tests, and it turned out she had low-grade chronic inflammation and digestive imbalances, something she never expected to be caused by her daily salad bowl. You see, to keep produce looking fresh and pest-free, many fruits and vegetables today are heavily sprayed with pesticides, fungicides, preservatives. Even in small doses, over months and years, these chemicals can break down the protective lining in your gut, leading to leaky gluten. From there, inflammation spreads throughout the body, including the brain. There's a growing field of research called the gut-brain axis, idea that whatever harms your gut can directly affect your mood, memory, and mental clarity. So if you're eating vegetables every day but still feel foggy, forgetful, or mentally tired, maybe the problem isn't the vegetables themselves, but what came with them. Especially beware of the dirty dozen, the produce with the highest pesticide residue, like strawberries, grapes, apples, spinach, celery, potatoes, cherry tomatoes, bell peppers, and leafy greens. If possible, buy organic for these. If not, wash them thoroughly. Soak in diluted vinegar or salt water, and rotate your produce choices often. What's amazing is after Margaret switched to organic veggies and supported her digestion, her memory stabilized. She didn't get younger, but she told me, "My head doesn't feel heavy every morning anymore," and I remembered the lullaby my mother used to sing. Forgetfulness is natural with age. But if it's caused by toxins in your food, that's something you can absolutely change. And that change might start with the very next bunch of greens you put in your shopping cart. 6. Refined vegetable oils. When that healthy drop of oil quietly hurts your brain. I once sat in the kitchen of one of my patients, James, 69, a retired mechanical engineer. He was the kind of guy who read every label before putting food in his cart. When I asked him what kind of oil he used for cooking, he replied proudly, "Vegetable oil, doc. No animal fat, no cholesterol, much safer, right?" And I get it. For decades, we were told to avoid saturated fats like lard, butter, or full-fat dairy. Instead, we were encouraged to use vegetable oils. Heart healthy, they said. But what I've learned from over 30 years of working with older adults tells a different story. Let me break it down simply. Refined vegetable oils like soybean oil, corn oil, canola oil aren't made from vegetables at all. They come from seeds, processed in factories using high heat, chemical solvents, deodorizers, and bleaching agents. That harsh processing distorts the oil molecules, oxidizes them, and creates compounds that trigger inflammation in the body. So when you're frying food, baking with packaged snacks, or just stir-frying with store-brand oil, you're likely consuming a heavy dose of oxidized omega-6 fatty acids. And while omega-6 is essential in small amounts, when it's out of balance with omega-3, it fuels chronic inflammation. And guess what? Chronic inflammation is a major driver of brain cell damage and accelerated cognitive decline. One study in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease showed that people with a high omega-6 to omega-3 ratio had significantly higher risks of memory loss. I asked James to switch to extra virgin olive oil, cut back on deep frying, and try lighter cooking methods. 2 months later, he came back and told me, "I didn't expect oil to affect memory, but I sleep better now. My mind's clearer in the mornings, and I even finished that sketch I left half done last year." Sometimes, change starts with just one drop of oil. I'm not saying you have to throw out everything you know, but if you choose oils that are less processed, less prone to oxidation, and avoid reusing oil, you're giving your brain a better fighting chance. Because when it comes to your brain, it's not just sugar that's the enemy. Bad fats can be a silent threat too. 7. Reused fried foods. When that perfect crunch becomes a memory trap, who doesn't love a crispy French fry or a piece of golden fried chicken? That smell, that crunch, that satisfying bite doesn't just excite your taste buds, it brings back memories. I'll admit, I used to enjoy fried food too. Until I learned what really happens inside your body and your brain every time you bite into something deep fried again and again. Let me tell you about Bill, 65 years old, full of life and always joking around. He lived alone, kept meals simple. Most weeks, he'd buy frozen fries, mini pizzas, Some packaged fried chicken pop them in the air fryer or skillet. Easy and tasty, he said. When he came in complaining of forgetfulness, mental fog, and sluggish thinking, I dug into his diet. And there it was, a steady stream of reheated, crunchy foods. Here's the thing. When foods are fried at high temperatures, especially when oils are reused multiple times, they form toxic compounds like aldehydes, acrylamides, and free radicals. These can cross the blood-brain barrier, inflame neural tissue, and accelerate brain degeneration. And most fried foods? They're made with those same refined vegetable oils I just talked about already, unstable, already oxidized. Reheating them makes them even worse. Plus, fried foods tend to spike blood sugar faster. That roller coaster leads to insulin resistance, which, as we've discussed, is a risk factor for Alzheimer's placed and Tay. Think of your brain like a high-performance engine. It needs clean, steady fuel. Every time you eat deep-fried, reused oil foods, you're sending up signals of inflammation, stress, and vascular chaos. Not something your brain can ignore for long. I asked Bill to try some changes. Bake instead of fry, use the air fryer properly. Switch to heat-stable oils like olive oil or avocado oil, and never reuse cooking oil. 3 months later, he said, I still crave fried stuff, Doc. But now I only eat it once a week, cook it fresh, and use new oil every time. And you know what? My mind feels sharper, and I sleep deeper. That clarity didn't just come from better sleep, it came from better choices in his kitchen. Because your memory isn't only protected by pills, it's shaped by what you choose or refuse to eat each and every day. 8. Gluten and lectins. The silent wreckers between your gut and brain. I want you to imagine your small intestine like a fortress, wall-lined with tight cells, guarded gates, and strict security on what gets into your bloodstream. But what happens if those bricks start to crack? If those gates loosen up and let strangers pass unchecked? That's what we call leaky gut syndrome, and I want you to know it's closely tied to cognitive decline. I once treated Clara, 67, a retired librarian, sharp as a tack and passionate about literature. But in recent years, she began forgetting author names, couldn't recall the plots of books, and struggled to focus. She told me, it feels like my brain is stuffed with cotton. We ran some tests. She had signs of chronic inflammation and digestive imbalance. The hidden culprits? Gluten and lectin-stow proteins found in many common foods. Gluten is found in modern wheat, white bread, pasta, pastry, especially in industrial baked goods. Lectins are in foods like tomatoes, bell peppers, eggplants, potatoes, the nightshade family, as well as beans and grains that aren't soaked or properly cooked. Now, some people handle these just fine. But for those with sensitive immune systems or certain genetics, gluten and lectins can damage the gut lining, trigger inflammation, and overactivate the immune response. Here's what most people don't realize. Your gut and your brain have similar protective barriers. So when your gut becomes leaky, strange particles can sneak into the bloodstream, and some of them reach your brain, especially if your brain's barrier is also weakened. Result? Brain inflammation, memory issues, mood swings. Clara agreed to try a 6-week elimination diet cutting out gluten and high-lectin foods. She swapped bread for whole oats, tomatoes for squash, and pasta for quinoa. When she came back, she smiled and said, Doc, I just finished To Kill a Mockingbird. First time in 2 years, I got through an entire book. I remembered every character. I feel like I'm myself again. That moment reminded me, food doesn't just feed the body, it fuels the mind. So if you've been feeling tired, foggy, or forgetful for no clear reason, don't just blame age. Take a look at what's on your plate. Sometimes, the real battle for your brain starts in your gut. 9. Too much caffeine. When alertness costs you your memory. I get it. For many people, especially after 60s, starting the day without a cup of coffee is unthinkable. I drink coffee too. And yes, caffeine can be your friend, if used wisely. But if you're not careful, it can also quietly chip away at your memory. Let me tell you about Walte, 71 Reals, a retired writer. He came to me saying, I can't sleep well anymore. My mind's a mess during the day. I feel like I'm spinning at night. I asked about coffee. He laughed. I basically live on it. 4, 5 cups a day. The more tired I am, the more I need it. Here's the thing. Caffeine stimulates your central nervous system. It spikes stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline so you feel alert right away. But it also suppresses melatonin, the hormone that helps you fall into deep restorative sleep. If you drink too much caffeine or have it too late in the day, you stay wired. You don't sleep deeply. And when you don't reach deep sleep, your brain can't do its nightly cleanup job. And you know what gets cleaned out during deep sleep? Neurotoxins like amyloid beta, major suspect in Alzheimer's disease. So the vicious cycle begins. Tired, more caffeine. Worse sleep, even more tired, more caffeine. And somewhere in that loop, your memory starts fading. I gave Walter a simple plan. Only drink coffee before 11 a.m. Cut down to 2 cups a day. Swap the afternoon cup for caffeine-free herbal tea. After 4 weeks, he came back looking rested, eyes brighter. He told me, "Not only do I sleep better, I remembered an old novel idea I thought I'd lost forever. I'm not here to tell you to quit coffee, but I am here to remind you, alertness is great, but clarity is greater. And sometimes, to stay sharp during the day, you need to give your brain real rest at night. If you're using coffee to cover up a deeper problem, maybe what you actually need isn't in the cup, but in a good night's sleep your brain has been craving for too long." 10. Alcohol. When just a drink becomes a silent burden on your memory. I once had a patient named Carl, 68 years old, a retired financial officer. Every evening, he had 1 or 2 glasses of wine as part of his winding down ritual. "It's just wine, Doc," he told me. "I read it's good for the heart." And he's not wrong. In tiny amounts, alcohol might help with circulation. But here's the truth I often share with my patients. Alcohol is like a double-edged sword. Cut just right, and it peels a fruit. Cut too deep and you bleed. Studies show that regular or excessive alcohol consumption, even just 2 drinks a day, can shrink the brain over time, especially the hippocampus, the part that stores memory and emotions. And in older adults, the impact is stronger because our liver slows down. Our brain becomes more sensitive, and what once felt like just 1 drink becomes much harder for the body to process. Alcohol affects memory in multiple ways. It disrupts deep sleep, where the brain repairs itself. It causes neuroinflammation. It strains the liver, leading to insulin resistance that affects brain function. And it weakens the brain's ability to process emotions and make decisions. Carl started drinking more when he had trouble sleeping. Over time, he began forgetting simple words, mixing up dates, and losing his sense of direction. I encouraged him to cut back, from daily drinking to just 2-3 glasses a week. We replaced his evening wine with warm tea, sparkling water, or calming herbal drinks. 2 months later, he said to me, "Doc, I sleep better now, and I finally remembered the PIN on my phone, the one I kept forgetting for weeks." I'm not here to tell you to quit drinking altogether, but if you're drinking every night or using alcohol to deal with stress, it's worth asking yourself, is this drink helping me relax or slowly erasing who I am? Because memories, once gone, no glass of fine wine can bring them back. Let's protect them by being mindful with every little choice we make. 11. Artificial food additives, the invisible chemicals fogging up your brain. I remember going grocery shopping with my wife one time. While she was picking out fresh veggies, I found myself staring at a shelf full of diet cereals, low-fat cookies, and natural fruit-flavored yogurt. The packaging looked great, but when I turned the box around and read the ingredient list, words like sodium benzoate, aspartame, red 40, carrageenan, Mississippi G, TBHQ. Even as a doctor, I had to squint to make sense of it all. These are artificial food additives, chemicals we rarely think about because they're tasteless, odorless, and invisible. But that's exactly what makes them dangerous. Take my patient Terry, for example. 70 years old, lives alone, doesn't cook much. Most of his meals come from canned goods, ready-to-eat meals, or frozen dinners. They say low fat, low sugar, 0 calories. Sounds healthy, right, Doc? Well, here's the problem. When manufacturers remove fat or sugar, they often replace them with a cocktail of additives to preserve shelf life, improve texture, and trick your taste buds. Have you ever wondered why that pudding cup stays fresh after 6 months? Or why your chips don't get moldy even weeks after opening? Because what you're eating is no longer natural food. It's a product of food science. Research shows that many food additives can disrupt your gut lining, mess with your gut microbiome, and trigger inflammation throughout the body, including in your brain. Substances like aspartame, sodium nitrate, Mississippi G have been linked to memory loss, anxiety, and cognitive decline, especially in seniors with slower detox systems. I encourage Terry to slowly reduce packaged foods and switch to simpler meals: fresh veggies, grilled meat, rice, fruit. 6 weeks later, he came back smiling. My mind feels clearer, Doc. I don't need to write my medication times on my hand anymore. I'm not saying you have to live like a monk and cook everything from scratch, but I am saying, please read those labels. Because sometimes the thing harming your brain isn't what you see. It's what's hiding in that tiny print you never read. Final message. We've just walked through 11 everyday foods, some that we've trusted for years, even thought of as healthy, but can quietly chip away at our memory, our emotions, and even our sense of self. I didn't share this to scare you or make you feel guilty. I shared this to give you options, because I believe every meal is a chance to care for your brain, to preserve your memories, and to protect your clarity. If you've ever watched a loved one lose themselves in confusion, or if you are worried your memory isn't what it used to be, please know you can start making a difference today, right from your own kitchen. Which part of this video felt most familiar to you? Have you experienced any of these signs? Or do you have a loved one who should watch this? Leave a comment below. I read every one. If this video helped you, give it a like and share it with someone you care about. 216. And don't forget to subscribe, because I'll be back with more videos to help you understand senior health in a real, practical, and hopeful way. Thank you for being here, because your memory deserves to be protected starting now.